My preview and predictions for the 2024 US Grand Prix. Alright guys, how's everyone feeling today? I'm feeling great. We're back after this autumn break. I'm looking forward to getting into some more Formula One action. We've got a triple header to look forward to, but first we're starting at the Circuit of the Americas. So let's jump into the track itself. We've got that great turn one, that steep elevation change into multiple different lines that the drivers can take through that corner. Really exciting for the race because the dive bombs in there can be amazing. Remembering Hamilton from last year dive bombing Norris, that was a brilliant move. Then the track sort of dives into that Maggots and Beckett's-esque section to round out Sector 1. It's not so good in the race, but in qualifying, watching the drivers just racking up G-forces through there, it's truly exhilarating watching the cars go through there. Then Sector 2, you're sort of dropping down the hill into the hairpin before opening up for that really long back straight. You see plenty of moves on that straight because the DRS is just so powerful down there. And then some good moves into the braking zone where generally you'll just see the car on the outside get pushed off the track, and then plenty of complaining going on the radio of drivers getting forced off, coming back on the track, overtaking, get penalties, that sort of stuff. And then you're moving into the last sector of the Grand Prix where it sort of winds back and forth on itself. Again, amazing in qualifying. Sometimes in the race you do see some action in there where the drivers are taking different lines, sort of up and unders and old switcheroos like Crofty always talks about. So yeah, and ultimately it's just such an exciting track. There's overtaking generally just about everywhere around the track, and we have had some great races here in the last 3 years. So let's run through them. So 2021 US Grand Prix saw basically just a Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen masterclass. They were absolutely miles in front of their teammates and the rest of the field. And essentially that was just the story of the 2021 season. But Max and Lewis on that day both just pushing the cars to the limits, and it came down to the last lap with Lewis really hunting down Max after offsetting the strategy. He was catching, but just could not quite catch enough. Got within a second on the last lap, but it just wasn't enough. And Max Verstappen won in 2021. 2022, it was Carlos Sainz on pole that year, and he got absolutely taken out by George Russell in the first corner. And what happened after that? Oh, it was Lewis Hamilton versus Max Verstappen for the win. Unfortunately not as close this time as the year prior. Max Verstappen winning out, Lewis Hamilton in second, but it was another cracking race. There was also that massive crash between Alonso and Stroll, the now teammates, but Stroll made a really late move on the straight and Alonso crashed into the back of him, went flying. It was quite a scary one, but ultimately 22 race, also very good. The 2023 race was also a sprint race as we've got this season. And what happened in that one? Oh yeah, it was Lewis Hamilton versus Max Verstappen all weekend. But again, this time Max Verstappen quite far in front. Lewis Hamilton put in a really good effort in the race to stay sort of in it. Verstappen was coming from further back this time, so it sort of gave him a bit more opportunity to be in amongst it for the win. But Verstappen did end up winning out on that day, and then after the race, both Hamilton and Charles Leclerc got disqualified, and that was a really strange one. I remember thinking at the time that Lewis Hamilton fans would be quite happy to have not won the race because they would have got disqualified straight after, and that wouldn't have been so good. But all in all 3 of the races in the last 3 years have been absolute bangers, so I am so looking forward to the race this weekend. In the last couple of years, it has generally been a 2-stop race with the tyres just degrading so heavily through that Maggots and Beckett section in Sector 1, and then also in the final sector, you've got that really long right-hander, so it just absolutely pummels the tyres. So yeah, we should see plenty of differing strategy this weekend, which again should attribute to it being a great race. Okay, so time for my predictions for this race weekend. We've obviously just seen, or not just seen, but before the break we saw Singapore Grand Prix, McLaren just absolutely dominant in terms of pace in the car. So you really can't look past Lando Norris sort of being in the conversation for the win this weekend. I don't think anyone's disagreeing with that. We've got Red Bull bringing upgrades this weekend, so we'll see how they get on. I'm not expecting them to, get back in front of McLaren in terms of pace, but maybe they could kind of make that step forward to being back to the second best car on the grid, definitively. So here's how I see the top 5 in qualifying shaping up. I'm going to say Carlos Sainz in 5th, Charles Leclerc in 4th. I feel like Ferrari are going to be strong this weekend, but not quite strong enough to pip 3rd place, which I think is going to be Max Verstappen with those Red Bull upgrades. He's also obviously been incredibly strong at this racetrack over the last couple of seasons. I'm going to say 2nd place Lewis Hamilton, just pulls out a lap out of nowhere. He is really strong at the Circuit of the Americas, so I'm kind of expecting a big performance from him in qualifying. And then on pole, could it be anyone other than Lando Norris right now? So that does mean that I'm leaving Oscar Piastri out of my top 5 in qualifying, but don't worry, he's going to be making an appearance in the top 5 in the race. Speaking of which, my race top 5, in 5th place, I'm going to put Hamilton. He's going to drop back in the race. I think ultimately the race pace of the Mercedes isn't going to be as strong as the other teams that are sort of in contention for the top 5, so he'll drop back. I'm going to put Charles Leclerc in 4th, not by any fault of his own. I think that he'll have a good race, but he's going to get pipped by Oscar Piastri, who's going to come home in P3. After a poor qualifying, I see Piastri working his way up in the race. Similar-ish to Singapore, but he'll have a bit of an easier time getting through this time because it's a faster racetrack and there's more overtaking opportunities. But Oscar Piastri is not going to have enough pace to knock the top 2 off the pedestal. But how do I see it going? Is it going to be Norris to win? Is it going to be Verstappen to win? Well, second place I'm putting Max Verstappen. I think that he'll have a solid race. Again, like Singapore, he'll sort of outperform the car. He'll finish in front of the rest of the top 4 teams, other than Lando Norris, who I'm going to predict in P1. It's really hard to choose anyone else for the win other than Lando Norris right now, with how he performed in Singapore, how that McLaren has been in the second half of this season. So I do just see him taking the win. As for these last 6 races of the season on a whole, wouldn't you love to know which drivers are still in contention for which positions in the top 10? Well, take a look at this video and you'll be able to find out exactly which battles are still ongoing in the top 10. With all that, thank you guys so much for watching, get subscribed for more, and I will see you in the next one.